Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the New Ulm Rights Commission monthly meeting on this August 28th. Our chair is a little under the weather, so I'll be running the meeting today. I hope that's fine with everybody. First of all, I'd like an approval of agenda. If that's possible, I will mention that we will be tabling items 5E, the voter fraud panel, with League of Women Voters, as well as the video contest, as both Commissioners Zare and Commissioner Marin are not here today. So we'll be tabling those two items. Do we have approval of today's agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. That's approved. Everybody had a chance to look at minutes from last month? And everything fine? In that case, how about a motion to approve the minutes of last month?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? All right, let's move on. We have a special guest today, Ellen Bakke from Southwest Crisis Center. And Mr. Bakke, if you want to step up to the microphone and give us our presentation, essentially about the commercial sexual exploitation of children training. Southwest Crisis Center, Mr. Bakke, where's it located and what's it about? On a brief synopsis.
Sure. Southwest Crisis Center is a crisis center for sexual assault, domestic violence, sexual exploitation, and sex trafficking located in 5 counties in southwest Minnesota. We have an office in each one of those, but our main office is in Worthington, Minnesota. And so we serve Jackson County, Cottonwood County, Nobles County, Pipestone, and Rock County. We are, I guess, the keeper of the Safe Harbor Regional Navigator Grant, in which I serve 17 counties, including Brown County. Basically, if you take everything from the South Dakota border, go over 5 counties to the east along the Iowa border, and then go up 3 counties up north, and then back across. Those are the 17 counties that I cover.
Very good. And you have a training coming up about commercial sexual exploitation of children. Could you explain what that is, first of all, for our listening audience?
Yes, I would, and because that's actually something that I'd like to kind of talk to you about for doing here in New Ulm, in Brown County particular as well. This is a training that we have done in several communities. It really sets up the whole notion of, does sexual exploitation and sex trafficking happen in our community? It starts with that basic question. Because as I've traveled around, this is a new position for me. I had just actually started this position back in March. Previous to that, I worked for Community Action Agency, and then also I've been a ELCA Lutheran pastor. And when I first got started in this position, when I saw the position was open, it was because working at the Community Action Agency, running a 409 youth, at-risk youth development program, we had youth who were being exploited and even exploiting themselves. We didn't have anyone at that time that was known to be trafficked, but we were working with very vulnerable youth that were getting in over their head in ways that needed help, needed protection. And so when the position came open, I decided that this is an area and avenue that I'd had interest in and applied for. So when I took the position, in working with the 17 counties, I would travel the county and I would talk to various different system professionals, those including law enforcement, probation, county attorneys, medical, chemical dependency, schools, and various other system professionals. And the first question I'd ask is, so I'm new to this position, which is really nice to be able to start something off like that, and say, I'm new to this position, so can you kind of help me get a grip on, in southwest Minnesota, does sexual exploitation and sex trafficking happen, and what does it look like here? And the answer to that ranged from, it doesn't happen at all, to it happens and it's an epidemic problem. And so what we've been doing in the past, and we're really stepping that up, is this CSEC training, Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children. It really takes a look at that first basic question, does it happen, and what does it look like? What are the forms of sexual exploitation take, and how does that often lead into sex trafficking? Because it's kind of a gateway into sex trafficking. Sex traffickers prey on vulnerable youth. And so in that exploitation part, youth become in some ways desensitized and numb to sexual exploitation. We live in a heightened sexual time of age, and so some of the things that take place are far different now than what they were when I was a kid growing up. And so it really looks at that first question, what does it look like? Does it happen? And from that, as a shared response, a shared community, because as the people who are involved in these CSEC trainings will come to share their experiences, one starts to actually put the pieces of a puzzle together, much like if you're looking at one of these pictures, if all of those were pieces of puzzle, without a lot of those pieces, you can't see clearly what the picture is. But as you take each of the understandings of what sexual exploitation is and put those pieces together from law enforcement, from education, and various system professionals, you come to a very clear picture that, yes, it is here. And in those situations, then what do we do about it? Because we can't just monitor something or look at something. It's like that commercial that's out there about someone who actually does the work or someone who just monitors it. There's a dental one. We can't just monitor and take a back seat and be bystanders to a problem that is really impacting our youth. Every day in Minnesota, between 8,000 and 12,000 youth are sexually exploited or sex trafficked in Minnesota. And of that number, one would start to think that, well, it's really an epidemic problem in the larger city. In maybe Mankato, New Ulm, definitely no, it's a little bit too small. And if you go down the road within Brown County and you go to Sleepy Eye or you go somewhere else, no, for sure it doesn't happen there. In Mankato, maybe, and for sure, yes, we would agree that it happens in Minneapolis, St. Paul, maybe some of those outlying suburbs, or perhaps in Rochester and St. Cloud. And a lot of people have that belief. I know when I took this position, I told my brother that I was resigning from where I was at to take on this task, and his first question, so does it really happen? Do you think you'll run into youth that have been exploited and trafficked? And I said, yeah, I really think I will, but I didn't know that just in a short 5 months that I would work with 17 youth myself. Who have been exploited and trafficked. And so of that number, of that 8,000 to 12,000 people, from the Safe Harbor grantees, and there are 9 of us around the state, we did a study and compiled all of our statistics for 12 months, and so that includes months previous to when I was there. But of the people in Minnesota who had been reported just through the Safe Harbor grantees, not through law enforcement, not through education, not through social services, not any of the others, just the people who we had worked from, 1,174 youth came or were reported through the Safe Harbor grantees. And of those 1,174 youth, 722 were from outstate Minnesota. Now, that's the lion's share of that 1,174, and that excludes St. Cloud and Rochester areas, and of course the Twin Cities, 7-county metro areas. And so there's 722 youth who in rural Minnesota have been exploited and trafficked. I was just meeting with Jeff Hohenseed today, and we're working on a project as well that when you visit with the on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground professionals, you really hear a story that really borders, even in our own communities like New Ulm, that is epidemic. Because even one is too many. When you start looking at the implications of what happens to a youth who's been trafficked, it is absolutely horrible. I'll get into some of those things in just a moment, but then back to the CSEC training. It really gets on to, so if we have this problem, and we do have this problem, what do we do about it? How do we develop a primary prevention program in response to it? How do we work with those victims who are involved in sex trafficking and exploitation? How do we provide services that will help them with mental health, which will help them with post-traumatic stress disorders, that will help them with emotional and physical health problems and chemical dependency? How do we put together a system response to help those victims? And then how do we put together a community response that is really going to be able to address the problem and stop it before there are more victims added to it? So the CSEC training is a very important part of that. It also goes into developing protocols for each of the system response teams to be able to work together, because of course we all have our own systems, we have our own rules, we have our own paradigms of operation and constraints that we work within. And some of those things can be seamless with other protocols of another system professional, but other times they kind of miss. So once we know that it does exist, and then we've decided that we're going to do something, how do we actually develop the protocols so that we'll seamlessly unite those to be able to help those victims and to put together the public awareness and the community response to stop it? CSEC is really a very important first part of developing a response. It's awareness, it's community outreach. From there, it really becomes moving then into the integration and the protocol development. That's what we've been doing in other communities, and that's something that we really want to do here in New Ulm. And with that, it means raising partners, and there are a lot of great partners already involved. In talking with Jeff, he's all on board and says, yeah, when do you want to do it and who else is needed? And in visiting with Jackie, when she told me about the Human Rights Commission, this is a Human Rights Commission issue. This is about human trafficking. This is as bad as it gets. So in visiting with her, I wanted to be able to come here, and I really thank you for giving me this time to do it, to talk about how do we then really work at setting up one of these, when is appropriate time, what partners need to be involved, what specifically needs to be spoken about and addressed within this community, because all communities are different. And you can't take a one-size-fits-all approach to it, because sexual exploitation and sex trafficking looks different in New Ulm than it actually does just down the road in Mankato, and it looks different than what it does where I come from by Slayton, Minnesota. So what is it that really needs to be done? And I have three questions that kind of lead into that. And these are the questions that I want to leave with you, because I don't want to use up all the time. I want to allow it for questions. But these are the three questions that really CSEC training talks about. First, how can we as a community best protect our young people? And how can our service providers best meet the needs of trafficked youth? So how can we protect our youth, and how can we help those who are victimized? Second question, how do we work together to discover and prosecute the traffickers? That's the second thing that people have a misconception of when it comes to those who are trafficking. There are multiple ways. We often think that it's just gang-related or that there's some cartel. And those things do happen, and even the gangs actually happen in southwest Minnesota. But there's also familial trafficking that takes place. There's a lot of trafficking within rural communities that's really sex for shelter, sex for food, survival sex. So how do we then take a look at those people who are trafficking even their own families? The third part is, how can we deter those who buy sex, the activity that actually drives sex trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation? I'm going to ask a little question here of the guys. And if you'll just raise your hand, who here is within these ages, 30 to 60? Raise your hand. Okay? Who here is married? Raise their hand. Who here has children? Raise their hand. Who here has some type of education beyond a high school education? Raise your hand. There's a few more that I could go in, but all those are actually the identifiers of the people who are actually purchasing sex from minors. When you look around, it's you, me, it's us. We often think that it's got to be some sleazy person that just, has come from the world's worst environment, has just been beaten down and doesn't know any better and has just been conditioned to this, and that they're the ones who are going to exploit. Sadly, the problem is a little bit more insidious than that, and so that it affects people like you and I. That's who some of our Johns are in that world. And so it really comes to be able to look at those three questions. How do we work with the youth? How do we deter those who are purchasing sex? And then how do we really work on developing the systems that will prevent traffickers from coming into our communities? I've got a million things I could talk about, and previously as a Lutheran pastor, you can probably think that, oh my gosh, we'd better not, because if we leave this open, this could be at least a half-hour sermon. So I will stop it there, but open it up to any questions that you might ask of me.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think, I apologize,
No,
why do you think that it is middle-aged men? Is it because of disposable income? Is it out of boredom? What do you think is actually bringing these men to the table?
If you look at those characteristics of who the purchasers are, you'll see things in common. Also, the other part that I would put in there would be of ethnicity or race, white, that's another part. It's of privilege, it's of power, it's of control, and they have the disposable incomes to be able to do that. Of that characteristic, the dynamics of the people who purchase sex, they have a middle income to upper income job or wage source. And so it's really about power and control. It can be some perceived unmet needs within their own relationship. And so what they're doing is saying, okay, since this isn't happening in my current existing relationship, I'm going to use the wealth and use the opportunity that I have to be able to get that unmet need fulfilled.
Do they have like prior convictions, or do you see anything that they're coming in with the same type of criminal background, or are they coming in with no criminal background? I'm just thinking how you can forecast or at least get an idea of where, I don't want to say target, but
That's an interesting question, because I was visiting with Jeff about that today because of a sting operation that was done that had yielded 8 people who responded to an ad in a very, very short time to see, did any of them have prior convictions? None of them had prior convictions. The other dynamic of those people who are caught is that the average amount of times that they have purchased sex before they got caught is 54. Now, there could be somebody who gets caught the very first time, but if you're going to get that average of 54, it means that there's been others who have been doing this for 107 times purchasing sex to be able to hit that average. So there isn't a psychological disorder that's causing it, so it's not a matter of necessarily of mental health. It really becomes of egotistical self-desires and having the means to be able to do it.
thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Well, what I would like for you is to ponder those 3 questions and to ponder whether or not you think CSEC training is something that would be useful and valuable in this community, and whether or not the commission would want to be involved in that as a partner of support, not a partner of necessarily of funding or anything like that, but a partner of promotion, of community engagement, community awareness, and lifting up this issue to be something that we do to provide safe communities and to continue to enhance the community that we have so that it's a great place for people to live, and that these issues aren't detracting and taking away from our valuable commodity of precious youth.
Commissioners, do you have a response for that? I do believe partnering with them is a very good idea for us. It serves our purpose very, very well. Any comments from the rest of the commissioners regarding that?
I agree with
I agree.
That is marvelous to hear. It makes my day. Thank you
Great.
very much. I appreciate
We will
it.
be in touch, I am sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Bakke.
Thank you. I appreciate the
Appreciate it.
time. You have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.
you.
Safe travels. That is a very timely topic for us too, considering what transpired over the weekend.
Very much so.
Moving on with our agenda, Events Committee report, the Brown County Fair booth. I think we were all out there, and I think we could all say it was a success. I know I had a great time. Any comments about that? Booth looked great.
Did.
I had no altercations, nor did anybody give me the stink eye as they were walking by, so
I
I was
had
happy with that.
a refusal to shake my hand was, I think, as much as I got for pushback. I just did not want to shake my hand when I introduced myself. It was, no, thank you, and just kind of stepped away. But other than that, everything seemed like it was received very well. I've had multiple people ask about attending meetings and what they can do, volunteering. Just
Posters.
getting our name out there has been fantastic
A lot of
from the
people
booth.
were, I didn't know you guys existed. Or-
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I didn't know it existed until I was asked to be on the commission. And I've been here a long time.
And I will say, we were out of town, so I didn't get to do the fair, but when we came back, and we were gone for almost 3 weeks, there was a noticeably higher number of our signs around town.
They-
When I
they
drove
went
into
out
town, it was
quickly.
there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. It was awesome to see.
Great.
Very visible.
Yeah, and we had fabulous volunteers come to man the booth,
Yes,
or woman the booth.
yes.
Oh, great. Well, I think that was a success, something we'll definitely have to consider again for 2018.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Great. Next up is Mankato Pride coming up on September 9th. Wendy, do you have any updates on that for us?
The committee for Mankato Pride is wondering if the Human Rights Commission in New Ulm would want to have a presence there and maybe even just want to walk in their parade that they're having. And that was the only question I had for us. So it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be the morning of the 9th. And I believe the setup for the parade is at 10:30 or so. It's usually over by noon. It's a very short parade. It's very, if you haven't been there before, very upbeat. And they were wondering if we would want to just be there, just a show of support. And there are many, many organizations that do that march and either have a banner or just show up, I guess. So I don't know if that's anything we want to consider. I know our time is relatively short on that.
I'm going to be unavailable that day.
I too am
However-
unavailable.
Too. I'm
If-
unavailable that day too.
Are you available, did you say?
No, not that day.
I need to double check. If I'm available, I'd like to. And then perhaps grab either our sign, I know we got shirts from volunteering, but perhaps a sign, since if
I
I'm the
think
only one there, banner might
if-
be a little
yeah.
cumbersome.
Yeah,
but
if we do it, I think anybody who does it should be wearing their Human Rights Commission
Yeah.
T-shirt. And we could simply be carrying one of our signs, just pop it out of your yard for that morning and
I think there's one right there.
well, there it is.
And I'll be there too. I won't be able to walk because I'm their photographer as well, but I can wear
Oh.
the shirt and I can have a presence that way.
Great, then, yeah, I'll.
So whoever wants to do, Wendy, can we get you to coordinate with anybody and see who
coordinate
would like to participate in that? And
Yes.
Even if it's, even
via
even
email.
if it's just a few of us,
Sure.
it's a nice thing to do.
And I don't think we need to officially be on the commission either. I mean, I think if your
No.
family wants to come, or I mean,
Absolutely.
it's a very family-friendly event, and
Sounds good.
all right.
5C, District 88 Forum on Race coming up on September 18th. Who has the skinny on that?
I guess I do.
You do
Just
have
let
that
me
one
catch
too,
up on my
Wendy?
writing here.
It's Wendy Day.
It is. Every day should be one
Got
day.
to catch up on these meetings.
You have an attachment that, if you want to open that up, the Forum on Race is something that was done in Mankato, and that's the one that I'm familiar with, and it was very successful. We had just an initial planning meeting back in June, at the beginning of June, with the superintendent, with some other community members who might be ahead of groups that would be able to recruit folks to come to this. And the idea being that you sit down and they supply facilitators for you, and you discuss. You have these heart-to-heart discussions on race. And what really I think made it feel important to me is a very good friend of mine who's a school psych over in Mankato participated in the Mankato one, and he went in with the attitude of he's going to be he's going to teach people, right? Because he is so, he's right there. He said he learned so much about himself and grew so much personally from this that he said it was just valuable for anyone to go. And I think especially when we are more of an isolated community here as far as diversity goes, that it is very valuable for us. The response at the initial meeting was very positive. So we're going forward with it, and you can see all of the specifics on here. You do need to register online, and you need to register by September 11th in order to be able to attend. It is going to be on September 18th. We scheduled it in the evening, so hopefully we can hit more people from 4 to 6. And I'm not sure. is there anything
We
else
should
anyone wants to know
mention,
about it?
I think we should mention too, anybody out there, people with families, there is childcare available if you pre-sign.
If you pre-sign up, childcare is available.
Yep.
Yes.
Which is a good thing as well. And again, that's one thing I encourage everybody to participate in this one as well.
And anyone you might know too, it's not just open, or it's not just our commission that's invited, it's anyone in the public that would like to attend. So if you know of anyone who would be interested, it would be a good person to send on over. You can forward this to anyone, I guess it's just not exclusive to us.
Very good.
Great.
Any other comments?
Looks good.
All right, moving on. 2017 Human Rights Commission Summit coming up October 4th at the University of Minnesota. I'm not quite sure what that's about. Does anybody really have any idea?
Did you see Lisa had information on that?
Lisa emailed out information at, I believe, middle of last week.
Okay. Have to go
Well, it's
back.
something we should all take a look at, and maybe we can bring that back up in our September meeting. Deal with it that way. 5E, of course, is getting tabled, as is 6, our Education Committee report, and now Community Outreach, number 7 on our agenda, and Dan Kalk made a great newspaper article.
Thanks. Actually, if I could back up a second,
sure.
and talk a little bit about 5E, the voter fraud panel with the League of Women. I was invited to attend a couple of their meetings, and so I think my plan is to I'm going to invite someone from there to maybe come in September, because they have they're doing a panel discussion on November, and and they've asked me if I wouldn't mind speaking on a policy end of things that apply to voter suppression and voter integrity, because apparently everybody else was booked already. So, but anyway, so they did ask, and so I guess I would ask if there's any objection if I were to go and sit on the panel.
I would say there's no objection to that, Dan. A meeting or two ago, we decided that we would partner with the League of Women Voters on this, so I see no trouble with it. Any other commissioners have an issue with this?
Not at all.
Didn't think so.
Yep, and then they did talk a little bit about partnering financially as well. I don't have any figures. That's why I thought maybe we'd invite somebody for the September meeting.
Okay.
To come and talk to us a little bit about, give us more detail on who's all going to be speaking. It sounds like a pretty good lineup they have. I think Gene Prochniak and someone from the Secretary of State is going to be there, along with some other people. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty good and pretty robust program. So I'll be in contact with them and let Jackie know who's coming and for next month.
Great.
Will
Commissioner
be-
Ostwald, you had a
Yes, I just have a
Comment?
comment for the next meeting. If we could get on the agenda, the Human Rights Award, we better by the time we get it in the paper.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
It's coming again.
We will also need to check in about, you said the monetary funds for the League of Women Voters panel. We are unable to donate at all any money, anything from the Human Rights Commission. So we will need to, really figure out how, if we can do anything monetary wise. I did volunteer personally to do flyers, just to notify everybody. But that's kind of a gray area with money wise.
Yeah, the reason we can't do that is our budget is not robust at this point.
Would you like to approach this podium and
Could you
help
state
give
your
us
name
some-
and roll for us, please?
Thank you.
Nicole
I'm glad you
Jorgens.
came to the meeting.
Nicole Jorgensen, City Finance Director. And it's not really a matter of your budget I mean, it's not in there either, but it's a state statute thing. As a commission or a city, they're very limited in what they can donate to or what they can contribute to. So that's what's limiting the ability to just give money to these different causes.
But if we're a co-sponsor of this event, would we have the opportunity to,
Yeah, if you were specifically to pay for, supplies or something to be part of, I think that would be okay.
so that's okay to do that?
Yep.
As long as we're a co-sponsor, because we have,
As long as you're participating in the event. I think that would
we've
be-
given honorariums to speakers who have come to town to
Yep.
advance our
Yep, and
cause.
that's paying, for
Okay.
your program, so that's.
All right.
I
So
think
we
it's a
just
good
can't,
way.
you say, we can't donate monetarily, but we can partner monetarily.
Yes, I think like I said, as long as you're participating in the program.
Gotcha.
As part of the participants and the things that are going on, that you could help supply some of the things needed for that.
We have any questions, we're gonna fly it by you before we do it.
I'll
How
be
does
here.
that sound?
Thank you so
Great,
much.
thank you. Great, sounds good.
I think we were talking about the
Oh,
newspaper article.
Yes, we were done. Anything else to add on the voter fraud panel?
No, that's it. So just stay tuned for more.
All
for
right,
next
sounds
month.
good. Moving on to number 7 on our agenda, community outreach. As I mentioned before, Dan did a great job, I thought, on our newspaper article from the city.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well done.
thank you. Yeah, thought it turned out all right.
Did you get any fan letters out of that, or any book offers, or anything?
Just 2.
Just 2?
Yeah,
That's not bad.
Well, I forgot to add that to the
Let me know if you
agenda
need an agent.
about how if I can take the money for it and whatever. And then so just as kind of a follow up, I did when I talked to Mr. Sweeney over at the Journal. We did also, and I think last month we discussed about the possibility of kind of like maybe perhaps a feature story if the Journal wants to run something like that. So I thought I thought maybe next month I would get in touch with. Clay over at, because that's who Kevin told me to touch base with, and so maybe in the next couple of weeks I'll touch base, and so, stay tuned for more on that as well. So I'd like to get everybody involved in that, depending on what direction the article goes.
I think that would be good. It's, in the last few years, I do believe the commission has taken an expanded role in the community in trying to educate people on human rights issues, and I think that's a good thing to get out. And let them know this is what we've been doing.
Yeah, and I think riding on, the coattails of the fair and with the signs, I think that there's already kind of a buzz, and I think the timing is probably pretty good.
I agree.
So,
Great. Well, keep us updated on that too then, Dan, would you?
Yep.
And speaking of our signs too, I do believe personally we should get some more, but it's gonna be a money issue, I suppose, at this point in time,
Right now, it looks
given
like
the time of year and such.
we have about 400, give or take a little bit, about 450 available still in the budget.
Okay.
Signs, since we don't have enough to do another 50 signs, or I say anything under that, I believe, is $12 a sign. So we would have enough to get like 25, 30 signs. I know I have a handful of people that are looking for signs, so.
I have some as well that are looking for more.
I do believe we're going to have to wait until our 2018 budget, though, before we can really do anything.
We don't want to leave money in the budget
It does
as a
not carry
balance.
over?
No, and we asked for more money for next year, and if we didn't spend all of the money this year.
Well, I
then it's gonna
believe
be in-
that Finance Director Jorgensen can help answer that question for us.
You do have the opportunity to ask for a carryover if you don't use everything, as long as there's a specific reason for the carryover.
How much does that affect our chances of increasing budget if we?
It would not affect the decision on the 2018 budget.
So in that case, I do believe it's prudent for us to just wait. I mean, $450, it's just August. We want to participate in the voter fraud panel. Come October, we'll need a few dollars for that. If we do want to co-sponsor that, we'll find more about that next month,
Also the summit.
and the summit as well. So I think it's best served that we wait. the way the weather has gone, this has been one of the most pleasant Augusts that I can remember. So who knows, there could be snow on the ground by October 15th. Makes it a little harder to stick those signs into the ground and, we give a push again in spring. I think that's probably, at least in my opinion, the best thing to do and wait then, and we can buy bulk and really go to town with those things, so to
I
speak.
agree.
Okay.
Any dissent on that idea?
No, I think that makes sense, because, with the fall coming up, there might be something else that presents itself, either the fall or around the holiday season, that we may want to get involved with monetarily or otherwise,
So
so.
we just need to we need to lobby our city council members to give us that.
We
Bit
have
of a
so many
bump
things
on
we
our
would like
budget.
to do that it would definitely help to have more in the budget for next year.
Absolutely. Current human rights issues, the Hot Topics lunch is coming up on Thursday. That's going to be at the Country Club luncheon, and it's all about immigration and economic development. Some gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce is going to be speaking on that. I have RSVP to that. I do encourage anybody who can grab a lunch break to come out and listen and participate. From what I gather, and it's been a Chamber of Commerce thing for years anyway. Chamber of Commerce, in many cases, very conservative in many aspects of things, except when it comes to the immigration part. Then they lead more toward the progressive side on that. And it's all about how important these workers are to the community and economic development. So I think it's a good thing to at least sit and listen, and actually it's going to be a good thing to listen to see what kind of questions I think come up in that forum as well. So if you have the opportunity to go to that, I do urge you to call the chamber probably tomorrow and RSVP for that, if you could.
I will also be there.
Well, maybe we'll sit together if you're over this crud that you have.
It's allergies.
Well, it's allergies, okay. The other item that's going to be coming up here very, very shortly is the toolkit for ensuring safe and supportive schools for transgender and gender nonconforming students. And this is from is this from the Minnesota Department of Education putting this on, or I'm not quite sure?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. And everybody has quite a large synopsis of what this is all about. And this is going to be coming up. Does anybody know the date when this is going to be?
This is something that the schools, I spoke with the superintendent of District 88, and he has received it, and he sent me all of the policies or procedures from the current handbook to show what they already have in place. He did not come out and say specifically that this was going to be utilized,
Okay.
but that there were procedures in place currently to help protect the students. And he did appreciate the Human Rights Commission reaching out to them to advocate for his students.
So that is definitely something to keep an eye out for and advocate for when it comes up to debate. My assumption is that the school board will be making a decision on that, or will it be the principal?
It's gonna be a school board decision, I believe.
School board decision?
I believe, I'm not
Okay.
certain.
Once we find out when it's going to be brought to the school board, if we're able to attend that meeting as a commission or as at least a group, I think we would be able to have a strong presence there. If they give anybody a chance to speak, for or against, it would be good to have, a group of people there that can speak towards the appropriateness and the need for the students here in New Ulm.
A very good idea. Any other issues, current issues anybody wants to bring up? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Excellent. sir. I appreciate your help at the meeting today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Buttery voice once again.
Yes.
Who seconded the adjournment? I'm sorry, I was trying to
Lori.
write fast. I did. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for everybody in the audience.
Yes, thank you.
Attending.
Yeah.
Nice. To Jackie. Interesting little tidbit out